Okay, so some of you have asked for help on the rubric for grading other people's responses. I was going to let you guys just kind of float in the wind for a little bit. I went through and graded some of them, figured if I graded yours, it'd help you grade other people's. Realized, you know, it's pretty quick to grade these, but at the end of the day, I wasn't going to make it through all 140 people I have, or well, I think right now only 120 submissions in timely enough fashion, because I know some of you want to get this done. So I figured I'd post this up. We'll use the honor system. Hopefully people aren't looking at this unless they've submitted it already and they're ready to start grading. But, you know, here's my response to the CD player shoes paper. So it's pretty straightforward. So I'll hold this up here a little bit so you can kind of see and talk you through it. So what's happening is I just used the data. I didn't plot every point. I just drew a graph that showed the initial condition. That's that small dotted graph at the very bottom with the 40 pairs of shoes being produced and 65 pairs of CD players. Now the production possibility frontier tells us, given set amount of resources, the most we can produce. One of our resources is technology. And so when the technology for shoes improves, that means we can produce more shoes. In fact, of the answers that I've graded already, most of you got this. So what happens is we can produce more shoes, but we haven't changed the technology to produce CD players. So we actually can't produce any more. So notice I drew a straight vertical line. Now, your answer is I wouldn't expect you to have that. I just put that to illustrate that basically we can't go past 65 CD players no matter what we want to do, because if we devote all of our resources to CD players, we don't have better technology. So the best we can do is 65 CD players. So what I wanted to illustrate also is that some of you were pretty rigid in your interpretation. You said, well, I said it went up from 40 shoes to 50 shoes. So that means that, you know, when there's 30 CD players being made, there has to be more than 35 or 40 pairs of shoes being generated. That's just not really true, because we don't know the magnitude or how great the shift was. We just know that it goes up. And so anything greater than 30 pairs of shoes represents a technological improvement, right? So you're able to produce more than you could before, and you're thus better off. Now, so it is a technological improvement. It's a pretty straightforward problem. The reason I put it out here with the grading rubric was, one, I've never tried doing this. I wanted to do it, see how you guys function. The other is I wanted you guys to be able to see that, you know, other people made mistakes just like you. In fact, I can roughly say, and I'm going to put this down because hopefully you've got it, but I can roughly say that most of your answers fell into a couple categories. So quite a few people did that. Quite a few people did a graph like this. Let me draw this really quick. Shoes, CD players, where you had the initial graph, and then for some reason you came out here and you drew another graph like this. And so you had the, if you can see it here, you had the first graph that was correct, and then the second one you didn't go all the way to the axis. You needed to connect that point up, because there's no justification for just starting out here, right? Your resources improved. That means you can, with 0 CD players, produce more shoes than you could before. So you just need to connect it up. The other category of mistakes was, let's do the shoes, CD players. And was where people did this, and they did the first graph correctly, you know, 40 shoes, 65 CD players. And then what they did is they shifted up the shoes, but they somehow said, well, now we can't make as many CD players. And I'm not sure where that came from, but it was a category that I saw quite a few people doing. In fact, I'd be interested in why you did it that way. I know when I do this exercise in class, I tend not to see this happen, but I have seen it happen. So, you know, but the reality is we're growing the economy, right? We're able to make more shoes and we don't have to give up CD players as the exercise. But all in all, that's pretty good. Now, what I'd like to say on the grading rubric is I think the rubric's kind of straightforward. If they drew the initial condition correctly, and they didn't have to have numbers, it could have just been an initial production possibility frontier. As long as they had shoes and CD players on the axes, they get a full 5 points. I think that was the rubric. Let me. I'm going to shift over here and look at that rubric again really quick. Yeah. So, and if they, so the bulk of it's just being able to draw a production possibility frontier. You get an F for doing that. And then 3 points was being able to shift the curve correctly. What I did is if they did one of the 2 mistakes I showed, I only took off a point. That's still pretty steep, but it all works out in the end. And then if they did anything more than 30, if they gave a number like 40 or 50, I gave them half credit. But if they gave me 30 or more, then it was full credit. And thus far, those are the answers I've seen. So hopefully this will help you guys when you go in and try to grade other people's responses. And when you get that done, hopefully you learn something about your fellow students in the process that, you're all learning at this point. I'm not expecting perfection. I'm not expecting it to look awesome. I'm just expecting you guys to work and show me some effort, and let's get through with this. But, I got to say, I graded a good 20 to 30 of them last night. And overwhelmingly, I mean, the vast majority were 90s, 9 out of 10 points. And a few of them fell a little short, went down to 8. I think one went to 7. But for most part, everyone was doing very well by any standard. So obviously, a lot of you are getting it. I know it's all confusing because you're just trying to work on projects, actually do something, produce something, and learn it along the way. So hopefully this video helps. Thank you very much. Bye.